Hello, hello everyone. It's Tuesday where we have different guests and just random different people with different skill sets and interests. Today we have Sarah. Is it Temel or Temel?
Temel.
Temel. Okay,
Yeah.
I was wrong on all accounts. So Sarah Temel. Now, where are you located, Sarah?
So I am in Haddonfield, New Jersey, which is just outside of Philadelphia, about 10 minutes or so from the city.
Oh, interesting. I love New Jersey just because Bruce Springsteen's from there. So,
Of course, classic.
yeah. So, how long have you been an astrologer?
So I really got deeply into astrology. I think it was around 2021, so not that long. I had like a lifelong interest in it. Like growing up, I would always get like the horoscope books for each year and kind of try and figure out what was going on with me and my friends. Then a good friend of mine who you know, Sarah Sherman, she's like, you have to study astrology. You're gonna love it. And I resisted for a while. But then she did a birth chart reading for me, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like, how did this kind of capture these elements of the story of my life? Um, and then so I'm also a therapist, and I did a therapy training that actually combined some astrology with a therapeutic modality called internal family systems. And from then on, I was pretty much hooked. So, yeah, it's been a very fun 5 years of just diving deeply into the astro world.
Wow. How old are you?
I am 38. I just turned 38.
38. Okay, so you kind of found astrology around 33, probably around
Yeah.
your Pluto square or something like that, or your
Yeah,
Neptune square. Um, but are you a counselor by trade? Is that what you do for a living?
it is, yes. So I am a trauma therapist. I'm a licensed professional counselor in New Jersey, but I mostly work with folks who have gone through complex trauma, which means repeated events, usually things through childhood or family abuse, things like that, relationship dynamics. So yeah, it's all about kind of recovering from the things that have happened to us in the past so that they don't continue to sort of intrude in the story of our current timelines.
Interesting. Do you see that those trauma patterns in the chart?
Yes, absolutely. It's one of my favorite things to look at. So I'm got this big geeky smile because I'm like, yes, like that's,
So like what do you see for high trauma charts or people, you know?
so the way I look at a chart and kind of blend it with therapy is through the lens of that therapy model called internal family systems. And what that's really talking about is we all have multiplicity, right? So we all have different parts of ourselves, just like we have the sun and the moon in the chart, or a Mercury or a Venus. But then it kind of goes a step further to kind of look at like what has the lived experience been of having those placements. So, like, say you have Mercury and Aries, I can't know from looking at the chart whether or not there's been trauma, but I can kind of know which questions to ask to get us in the direction of finding anything that's sort of unresolved. So, like, say you have Mercury and Aries, but this person's very soft spoken, right? I'm looking at, like, what's the wound that's kind of preventing the expression of this from coming out in a clear, direct
Hmm.
sort of way. So that's just one kind of example. But yeah, like for each of the placements in the chart, I sort of have like a series of the different parts of the person that might have experienced something. And so it's really kind of me asking a lot of questions
Hmm.
to feel around for like what is unresolved, right? And like how can you live the best, fullest expression of your chart also based on what you've been through in your life.
It's interesting. So in the ancient, I'm more of the ancient side of things, and it's like the in Ptolemy in the Tetrabiblos, he kind of outlines like four influences on a growing creature. So it's like we're kind of looking at it from a development theory standpoint, but not necessarily a trauma standpoint. But it's like your genetics, your culture, your climate, and then your chart. And I feel like that family systems layer might be some of that cultural layer of like where did
Yeah,
your chart grow up in, like well, that whole family dynamics layer of therapy, I feel like is that cultural layer. Um,
absolutely.
does that kind of sound like what you do is the interface of those things?
Yeah, very much, right. So it's like what's in the chart is sort of like what is the lesson plan for the soul or like the pathway for growth and development and then kind of linking exactly. So the type of trauma that I work with, complex trauma, it's also called developmental trauma because it's these things that happen early on in life, we take on a belief, we start to operate from that belief without kind of updating it. And so, yeah, it's looking at the chart through this lens of like developmentally, where are maybe some of these placements stuck? Why are they stuck, right? Like, what's the belief that the person is holding on to? Again, if we just took that Mercury in Aries, it's like, well, I'm too terrified to speak. Like, terror is a very Aryan sort of thing, but it's not the way we expect, right, that to show up. And so then we would go in, well, then I would go in and do some of the internal family systems therapy work to sort of unburden. That's what we call it in internal family systems, IFS. We call it an unburdening. The part no longer has to hold this belief that's keeping it from being more fully expressed.
Is that kind of like similar to limiting beliefs?
Yes, yeah, it's very similar to limiting beliefs. And it's kind of these things where, not everybody knows, like, well, it's because my dad always told me I wasn't good enough. Sometimes it's not so clear. It's more these subtle ways that we get information through our interactions with people, our relationships. A lot of times it's looking for the things that didn't happen, which can be harder to find, right? It's not always like, this is what happened. It's like, this is what I was missing that I needed developmentally and didn't have.
Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, because it's like a Mercury in Taurus who is quiet might be quiet because their mind literally doesn't bubble up with things to say. It's just kind of a
Right.
peaceful thinker. But the Mercury in Aries might be not talking because it's scared. Like it sounds like you're uncovering like the why, like you have an issue and then you have the chart pattern, and then you're kind of uncovering what in that combination might create the issue or something. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it's very much like that. Right. So if a Mercury in Taurus comes in and is more soft spoken, more deliberate in their thinking, like really takes their time, I might not see that as, oh, there's a trauma there or a burden. It's like, okay, well, that makes sense.
Oh, interesting. So
Versus like
the
Mercury
Mercury on
in Aries,
Aries is
like,
out of character to be quiet. So then you're wondering, why is this person not speaking up?
yeah, and it can kind of go two ways. So one is like the inhibition of whatever the natural inclination is. And then the other, of course, is like the overdoing it, right? Well, why do you always have to be talking? Why do you always have to have the last word? Why do you always start the fight, right? So they can be burdened in these kind of two ends of the spectrum.
So like a burden is kind of any pathological use of one's chart infrastructure is like that's a burden, like, over talking,
Yeah,
under talking, anything.
it's sort of like what is kind of that limiting belief or emotion that the person is holding on to, which kind of influences how they behave or express or even experience themselves or other people.
Because I feel like I'm an astrological remediation person. That's like my specialty, and that's kind of what we do in remediation is like anytime something in the chart we don't like how it's expressing, then we go in to try to, we maybe there's like millions of ways to remedy a planet. Yours happens to be kind of counseling based or therapeutics
Yep.
based, but it's like I feel like anytime you have a planet that's expressing in a way that we don't like, that goes into the kind of remediation sphere of astrology. Like, do you identify as a remediation or a remedy-based astrologer?
So it's really interesting because I never have, obviously, I'm newer to the field of astrology. I never had heard of that until I met you. And something in I was like, oh, yeah, like that is kind of the process of the work. And that's the point of it too, is to kind of remediate, yeah, like find ways to kind of resolve some of the things that are creating, especially like creating a pattern of an issue in this ongoing way, where some people might be like, well, that's just my karma because that's my chart. And it's like, but that's not the point, right? If that was the point, like, what are we doing? Um,
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
Well, and I think therapists are actually one of my favorite remedy artist subsets of people because, okay, like for example, like, an astrologer can identify like you have a Sun square Mars and that has a potential for violent outbursts or something like that. But astrologers aren't necessarily trained to deal with the transits to those sun square Mars and like the processing of trauma that happens when these transits resurface. Like
Yes.
like trauma will cyclically resurface in a person's chart, and it's like I feel like the therapists are the ones who can kind of walk through with the clients of like, here's another transit to your sun Mars. Like, how can we unpack the trauma that you're creating right now on this one transit, or the trauma that's resurfacing from the past, or.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. And
go ahead.
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just really resonating with that is kind of that integration of the counseling arts and the wealth of different trailheads to wisdom through the chart. Um, yeah, there's a lot there, and those transit things too, like through internal family systems. Like say we've kind of uncovered some stuff and done some work on something in the past. If we see there's like a transit coming up that feels like it may kind of resurface some of that stuff, then at least when it comes up, the client isn't like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm dealing with this again. I really thought we had solved everything. What's wrong with me? It's more like, oh, right on time. Like, let's check out the next layer of this, right? Like, what did we miss last time? Or retrograde periods are good for that too. It's like, what did you already deal with that you now need to deal with again?
Well, there's interesting. There's something so powerful to understanding and accepting cyclicalism of behavior and emotion. Like with I work with some people just in like recovery realms and stuff like that who continually are surprised by behaviors or traumas or things resurfacing. They always think they're gonna get better, and then that's life. And it's like as
They're
astrologers,
healed.
I'm like. Yeah, I'm like, you're cyclically going to have manias again. Like, you're cyclically going to act out. Like, why do people relapse? It's like it's cyclicalism, coming in through the transits. And so I feel like there's something really powerful about what you're doing there is saying, like, there's trauma and I'm going to identify the cyclical possibility of this resurfacing and then kind of work with you on that level.
Exactly, exactly. And that can be the hardest thing for folks to kind of wrap their minds around that like we don't just arrive at, oh, I'm healed, right? That's not what happens. But exactly as we through therapy or other healing arts, as we start to change our relationship to the pattern, it doesn't go away, but the relationship can become healthier. The relationship can become something you're more conscious of. It can express itself in different places in your life. And so for me, like, right, we look at the chart, like you're never finished doing whatever the work is in the chart or through transit, but your relationship to it can change. So it doesn't have to be that every time I experience, this thing every year or this transit, like it's so awful. It's like, oh, like, hello, old friend, right? Like we meet again and kind of, yeah, building this like healthier, I call it kind of a attachment repair to our pattern, whatever it is.
Wow, and attachment, very interesting. Yeah, have you ever heard of flywheeling, which is when you spiral upwards instead of spiral?
No, but I like that idea.
You're like flywheeling people. You're like, all right, on this time when we do the transit, we're gonna get better than last time. And like it
Oh,
seems
I'm gonna use that. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
So God, what it would be so powerful to work with a therapist like you. So let's talk about internal family systems a little bit. Like, what is that? That's a term that you're using. So what does that term involve and just generally speaking?
Yeah, so internal family systems was developed by a guy named Dick Schwartz. He was a family therapist, but he started to notice that people also had their own, again, cyclical internal dynamic that we continue to kind of live through. And so he called it internal family systems. And so it's kind of like how we internally operate. So I think it's really easily illustrated through a chart, right? You can see like, oh, the sun is squaring the moon. These are two different parts of the person. They have a certain relationship to each other. Um, so we all have multiplicity. We all have different parts. But then say you go through an experience when you're 5 years old and part of you takes on, I'm not good enough. In that moment, another part of you takes on a protector role. Well, I'm never going to have us do that again, so you never have to feel that I'm not good enough. So now we have a perfectionist part. He's like, okay, cool. I'll just do everything perfectly.
Mhm.
That doesn't really work, right? But then we go through life with the wounded part and the protector. This is a bit of a simplification. But eventually, once someone gets to therapy and is like, I want to work on my stuff, we build trust with the protector part, and then we go to whoever is most wounded inside and help them unleash or release their burden. It's called the unburdening. So it sounds very dramatic, but it's kind of a natural process. It's like an updating of time. It's like, does this 5 year old part of you realize that you're 38 now and you can really take care of yourself? And in most of it sounds so silly, right? But most of the time, the 5 year old is like, wait, what? I want to go with you. I don't want to be stuck in the past here.
Well, it's like giving yourself a new release. Like you're like, I'm Andrea Gehrz 3.0 now, or I'm 4.0,
Yeah.
or like it's like if you were still in your first release, when you're 30, it's like you're just there's a lot of bugs there that have been worked out since,
Right.
kind of thing. So it's called internal family systems because it's kind of like your internalization of what's happened to you.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
A lot of times, someone might find their inner critic part, right? Like that's kind of a common part that people know about. Oh, my inner critic. If we really check, like, who does that sound like? Who is the voice? Who trained my inner critic, right? We can probably find someone from the original family system as well. So, yeah, there's kind of like this mirroring because, when we're born, we're learning everything about what's the blueprint for the world and relationships from the people that raise us. And so inevitably we develop these parts of ourselves that kind of mirror that. But most of us weren't raised in the most healthy, loving, amazing, perfect household. And so that's how we carry on some of the family burdens through our own development.
Well, okay, so that makes me want to talk to you about like the interface because okay, let's say somebody has a chart that's like a Virgo moon, right? And their mom is also a Virgo sun or something like. So their mom's like really OCD. And so then in their internalized family system because they're a Virgo moon, they're like my mom was OCD and so I'm OCD. But if somebody has like an Aries moon and their mom's a Virgo sun, they're like, my mom was really OCD, so I've bucked that, and I'm not OCD at all, but I carry this. It's like I mean, don't you
Yeah.
think that the chart really informs like what parts of the family system we kind of attach to and become?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially like my favorite place to start really is the moon, of course, because there's such a lineage to the moon and it's how we handle all those changes and emotional ups and downs. Looking at the moon sign can really help us more quickly sort of zero in on like what is the unresolved emotional piece, right? Because the sign will tell us like this is the intention, right? So maybe if it's a Virgo moon, like the intention is to be really good at something. But if it's burdened, it's probably stuck and doing a lot of work that isn't really producing the result. Or if it's an Aries moon that's like, fuck that, I'm not like my mom. But you kind of swung the other way and you're like, I don't care about anything. My life is chaos, right? So yeah, you kind of see how through our experiences, we also have parts that try to correct the experience that we came from, but it often can sort of overcorrect or swing in the wrong direction as well.
So a burdened planet is one that's basically expressing a little bit like pathologically. Like,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
exactly.
So you basically like clean up the expression of a planet to get it to be kind of express because like some people say there's like the informed or mature version of using a planet or an aspect of personality
Mhm.
or there's the uninformed and kind of like base version of it. So it's like I feel like that's exactly what we try to do in remediation. It's like if someone has that Sun square Mars, they keep acting out, aggressively, we're gonna try to transmute that, to all of a sudden be like being very productive or like like being like
Right.
assertive and not aggressive and like so it kind of does seem like the unburdening process is similar to what a remediation person is trying to do.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to put my thing on your thing, but I'm
No, I love it. I
uh,
love putting all
how
the things on the things.
yeah, because it's like I'm surprised at how similar it is to what you're doing.
Yes, yes. And I love that. And to me, I always enjoy when there's so much overlap in things because that feels to me like, oh, we're getting to something, right? Like we're all kind of saying the same thing in different languages, then we must be on to something. Yeah, what you're talking about there, like moving from, assertive or aggressive to assertive, with the internal family systems, I think the only thing that's a little bit different, and maybe this is in remediation as well, you can tell me, but it's kind of like we're sniffing around for where's the wound? What happened that sort of created this rule, like this as a rule in your system? And if we can do through the IFS therapy process, if we can unburden that, then those parts of ourselves that took on those roles, they don't have to be in extreme roles anymore. They
Mm.
can sort of go to their authentic, right? Be that assertive Aries moon that's like, yeah, I feel confident, right? Like making decisions and I'm not just jumping from buildings. I'm like, no, that's what I want to do, right? It's such a different kind of energy.
Well, I think the difference, and I do want to get more into what you do here and like how you uncover the wounds and stuff like that. But it's like the difference I would say is that like in remediation, at least the way I practice it, it's like I don't think that you have to be wounded to act out on your transits. I feel like it's a chi problem. Like it's literally like the
Mhm.
planets are acting on your chakras, and you know, a Sun Mars square is like gets full of iron and just full of too much chi and just can't necessarily
Right, right.
it's prana or it's chi, right? Like whereas the counseling or the psychological approach would say like there's a wounding that the reason you're acting out erroneously is good. But I would just be like the person
Right.
just can't literally figure out they can't calibrate their chi yet, but yet when they're young.
Yeah, that makes sense too.
Yeah.
That
But
makes
okay, so
sense
tell us,
too.
how do you uncover a wound? I mean, it sounds like questioning, but
It is sort of. Yeah, it's kind of like we start in the present with what's going on now, right? Usually, when a person's coming to therapy, it's often not because this is the first time they've ever felt this way. It might be a new experience, like, oh, I'm heartbroken, or my mom just passed, or something like that. But if we actually can trace, I'll have them kind of notice the emotion, what feels like the worst feeling of it, the most uncomfortable, and then kind of guide them through a process of like, when else have you had this feeling in your life? And we sort of can create a bit of a map, like an emotional map of that experience. So that's one way that I sort of set things up to do some trauma work, is to kind of create this map of when else have you had this feeling? Or sometimes like the silly question, like, is this a new feeling or is this something old? Right. And it's almost always like, oh no, like I have felt this way many other times in my life. Um, and so if it's something like that, then we kind of know like it's something that has old roots, right? It's something that kind of came from the past and is now just showing up in this sort of uncalibrated way, like you said, in the present. Um, and so then the process is, well, there are all these steps in the IFS process and other trauma therapies that I'm trained in, but really like the core of it is finding who is the most vulnerable part, letting that part be fully witnessed and really held, and then kind of creating this internal relationship repair between the clients, what we call an IFS, the self. It's kind of like the spirit, it's not like an ego, but the self, and then this most wounded part, so that it doesn't have to keep being a scared 4-year old all the time. Instead, the 4-year old can go, like, go on the swings, run to the playground, and the client self can kind of be the one in charge.
interesting. So okay, so part of me is like, now I'm a Sun Square Mars, so it's like part of me is like a toughen up cupcake kind of a person where I'm just like, whatever,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
obsessed with your wounds, like that's why you're wounded.
Love
Like, okay,
them.
okay. So it's like, but like, and we actually had this conversation on a show a few months ago, which is how I think it was a Chiron show, and we were talking about how much it benefits people to focus on woundedness, and then how much it benefits people to just move past woundedness. And like so but
Yeah,
people probably
yeah.
referred to you when they have a wound and they want it to be like pulled, like they want an extraction of the wound. So like you're here for a reason, but like I guess
Right.
do you get my question of like how much is
I
focused on
do.
wound?
Yes, yes. And I really like this question because, people can, and I certainly have some of these parts too, so it's not to judge at all, but we really can have victim parts that are so centered around the wound and what's wrong and all of this. The point of doing this work is actually to move on from that, to kind of recognize that there is a way forward. There is like a healthy relationship that you can have with yourself now, right? But because again, it's kind of like an old glitch in the operating system. It's like if we don't do that, right, it may just kind of continue to play out. But yeah, sometimes people are looking to quickly, right, like pull this wound out and like get it done. I'm like, oh, that's not how anything works.
Mm,
Again, it's a cyclical process through your lifetime, that upward spiral you were talking about. And really, it is just internal relational work.
mhm.
When I notice something in myself now, I'm like, oh, I'm not like, oh, who's wounded? I'm like, who's here that needs me, right? Like, what's going on in here that like needs some focus and attention? So it's kind of this like loving internal relational model. Yeah.
Interesting. So So, what in your chart makes you want to deal with woundedness? Like, do you have like a moon Pluto conjunction or something? Like, what is your chart signature, do you think?
Well, I have Chiron in the 10th house, Cancer Sun, Mercury, and Venus.
Wow.
Um, yeah, those are in the 11th house. Well, the Venus is in the 10th house, the Sun is in the 11th house. So clearly, I find these things very important, right? If I think about the 10th house, it's like, this is what's important to me. And Venus there, it's like, these are my values, and driven by the Cancer agenda of, doing that emotional healing stuff.
Oh, nice. What's your moon sign?
Taurus moon in the 9th house.
Taur. Okay, okay. So that's kind of like you're probably like really steady and calming to the wounded person. Like, you do have a Taurus. You're wearing like a Taurus looking shirt, like Taurus color.
Yeah.
Are you a Virgo rising?
I am a Virgo rising, yes.
Okay, okay, interesting. Yeah, which I think like the Virgo rising would be like a little bit medically, like it's a little bit like in the system, you know what I mean? As
Yes.
opposed to being totally like counterculture and like only an astrologer. You're kind of like in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
Cancer Virgos, in my experience, are social workers.
Mhm.
Um, and it's like they do the very tangible work to heal people, like, so I think this is cool. And I'm sorry not to be nosy, but like what's your Mars look like? What
Mars in Leo in the 11th house.
Okay, okay, Mars and Leo. Okay. All right, interesting. So is it Mars? Do you have Mars square moon?
I have Mars square Pluto. Is it also square my moon? No, no, not by degrees, no.
Oh, Mars square Pluto would make sense with like it's like you're doing a little bit of a soul surgery
Yeah,
situation, and your Pluto's in Scorpio, so it's like kind of
mhm,
like wants to transform people.
exactly. It's like driven towards, right. Maybe that is the driven towards the wound. I'm like, where is it?
You're like the extractor.
Yeah, right. And then the Virgo part comes in, is like, let's make this my life's work. And like, we'll just help people do that process.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I have a few people I really want to go see you actually. Like people who I'm
Oh,
like I
great.
don't quite
Yeah,
know what to do with, you know what I mean? Um,
absolutely.
so tell me, you call your business maybe a no bad charts?
Yes, so No Bad Charts is the name I've given to this integration of internal family systems and astrology. It is a play on, there's a book that the founder of Internal Family Systems wrote called No Bad Parts. So I just changed it to No Bad Charts to kind of integrate the astrology piece. And also really to move away from this idea that, there's something bad in my chart and that's the reason that I am this way. And so yeah, but through No Bad Charts, I do a lot of work with other therapists who are astrology curious, sometimes with astrologers who are IFS curious. I get a little bit of both. But yeah, I have a webinar that I do there, and I also have some therapists that I see monthly who, again, are kind of trying to marry these two things together in a way that's really, it's because they want to be more productive and useful and get to some of these things in the work with their clients.
I mean, I do like that name. Like, I think no bad charts. That even that concept is very healing. It's like in the extracting a wound, which is that there's something disordered about certain charts, or like some people have hard charts, or you know what I mean. So, do you believe that there are no bad charts?
I believe there are no bad charts. I think there are bad experiences, but I don't think there are any bad charts.
Huh?
And, I'm sure you've had this experience too of like you can look at two charts that, have a lot of challenging aspects to them and difficult placements. But what one person does with it on their soul journey versus another can be so wildly different.
Yeah, it's kind of like having the same car, but you're not going to drive it the same, and you're going to like not drive it to the same places, or decorate it the same. I mean, like literally having the same chart to me is like having the same electrical apparatus to your soul senses machine or something like that. But yeah, it's like how you handle that is so different. Well, okay, I have to ask you though, like, what about the chart of a serial killer? Do you think that's a bad chart?
No, I think that's a bad person, but I don't think it's a bad chart. Again, it's sort of like, well, what did you, and I don't know who's to blame for that's a much bigger question, right? But like, no, I don't feel that like, oh, the chart created the serial killer. It's like the chart just came in as like, hey, these are the lessons that this person is here to learn. And through whatever happened to them, that's the pathway they decided or felt forced into. I don't know. But yeah.
Interesting. So then what like okay, would you work with somebody who's like a domestic violence offender or like are you how like what level of people do you work with?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have not, in full disclosure, I've not worked with anyone who was an offender of abuse. I'm usually working on the other end of that. So I work with a lot of childhood sexual trauma. Most of, yeah, most of the work I do is with folks who've experienced something like that in their childhood, codependent relationship dynamics. Um, yeah, I would say those are like the two really big ones. But yeah, it's usually some kind of childhood trauma.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, so are
So
well
a lot of offenders have experienced those things as well. They just haven't come to my doorstep yet. So,
I know it's like it makes me think of like, we never think of like perpetrators as being wounded, but I mean, I think if
hmm,
we, I guess they are highly burdened according to your terminology. It's like that's a very
yes.
burdened use of the chart is to be a DV person because it's like you might have a
Yeah,
aggressive chart, but you're not wielding it correctly or
right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right. Like, what did you do with that energy? Right. And you can even see this in like, families where two kids grew up in the same household. No one's going to have the same exact experience in that scenario, but roughly kind of similar conditions. Um, and like you can why does one child become more traumatized than the other and vice versa? Why
Hmm.
does one decide to like, well, I'm going to, go be the first one in my family to go to college and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And the other one's like, I feel powerless. I'm not going to do any of those things because I don't believe I can.
Yeah, I find charts that have a lot of planets in the fourth house like get really obsessed with like their childhood and like what happened in the past, but like if you have a lot of planets in the 10th house, then you're like whatever with my childhood, I'm moving forward and like I do think there are charts that perseverate on like the childhood and it's like, you know, I, to me that is a burden. I'm using your terminology, but like to
Yeah.
be super obsessed with the past in that way is burdensome.
Yes, yes, like a constant rumination on the past and kind of yeah. The interesting thing is too, like folks can have a lot of insight about their childhood and their past and all of that, but the insight actually isn't the same as doing this unburdening work. You can be just as burdened by all of your insight, right, about what's happened to you as well. And so, yeah, I've absolutely seen that. I have,
Well,
yeah,
and
experiences.
I think a less burdened use of fourth house planets is to like be a steward to actually physical land. Like I know someone she has
Hmm,
four planets in Sagittarius in her fourth house, and like she used to deal with like mom issues and stuff. But now what she does is she like basically works on her house and her land and her little farm that she's got all the time, and like when she's building her little habitats or whatever. She's like in the underburdened state. I'm like tripping on your word here, but
I
the
love it.
the thing is, I mean, I think even even people who are kind of like home focused and family focused can find really forward thinking ways of using that energy. And so if there's no
Right.
bad chart, are there good charts?
Maybe it should be called all good charts. All good enough charts. I don't know. You can work with it. You can work with any chart. Yeah.
Like, do you think some charts are better than others?
No, no. I don't know. I can just never see it that way.
Yeah, I'm
I
testing
think,
you.
do you though? I'm curious. Do you think some are better?
I think some charts are more prominent, like ancient Hellenists would look at like,
Hmm.
prominent studies, But I don't think a prominent chart is better than the chart of like a cashier. I think people in society might say, "Oh, Jackie Onassis is like super famous, so she's better," But I would see those as like inherently like there's no moral betterness to being prominent than there is.
For sure. Right. Like I'm like, is it karmically better to be Jackie Onassis? Like maybe not, right?
I do think there are easier charts than other charts, and I think people always say the trinity charts are like, oh, they're just lazy and this and that, but I actually think they're kind of gifts to the world. Like it's like if we have like I have a friend who has a kite and like everything that happens, he's just like so graceful through it. Like, he'll be like, switch
Mhm.
genders, I'm fine. Like, family trouble, I'm
Yeah.
fine, whatever. But the thing is I think that chart is a gift to the people around him. Like it's like
Mhm.
it's you know, I don't know, like I do think easier charts could help the world. I don't know, but see, you could look at them all as positives, right? Like the hard charts are positively dynamic and like really interesting, and then like they all have their positives.
Yeah, I think it's just that they all have their potential.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
And yeah,
sorry. Well, yeah, teleological thinkers, which are like kind of development thinkers, they don't look at a chart as bad. They'll say like if it's not functioning well, it's not growing in the right arena. Like if you have a very martial chart and you're kind of hitting people, it's because you're like being forced into a quiet classroom when you should be growing in a martial arts gym or something.
right. Yeah, I love that perspective. Like you're just not in the right environment for the energy, like the way that you're built.
Yeah. So do you ever do other remedies like gems or other things, or are you only talk remedy?
I don't do gems or anything, but I have them all over my office, because I just love them. I do internal family systems and then another type of therapy called EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It's a very long name for something, but basically it's about accessing emotional content from traumatic memories and then using bilateral stimulation. So usually I actually use eye movement. Some people do tapping, to kind of the same process of like releasing something that's being held onto from the past that it was true then, but it's not true now. So you don't really need to keep holding on to it.
Now that's so cool. Like on transits, when trauma cyclically resurfaces, you could do that EMDR, that tapping, or what.
Yes.
It's like that is so powerful. I mean, I think having somebody with hard chart signatures like work with someone like you is just so powerful because you understand the cyclicalism of their chart. You can go more acute on transits, and then you can just but it's like that's exactly the kind of thing that is really a power remedy. Is like you're like, now I'm like rewiring you as the transit's messing with you, and like,
Right. Yes, it's active now. So let's do it now.
yeah, interesting. Um, okay, so tell us about the workbook you're making.
Yeah, so I am working on, I really hope this is a third house perfection year. So I'm like, this is the year that I need to finish this thing and get it all written. It's going to be something that it will guide you through the internal family systems lens of looking at astrology. But then you're also going to be able to look at your chart, take some of those placements, and go through some exercises to really uncover more of your internal parts through the lens of the chart, through internal family systems. It's going to be called No Bad Charts, of course, because that's kind of the name of that thing to me. Um, but yeah, I'm very excited about it. It's been in the works for a long time, but yeah, I can feel it. I'm like, this is my year to just get serious and get it done.
Is your goal then to do kind of workshops, or is that workbook built for like one
Yeah.
student at a time?
No, I really would like to keep doing workshops. So I've done just like there's a 90-minute webinar on the website for anyone. And then I did one all day in person introductory to No Bad Charts, this February, which was, first of all, it's just so cool to be in a space with like other therapists who also care about astrology. Like it's very 11th housey for me.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
but then I'm going to be doing another one in September, the end of September in this Philadelphia area, where we'll be going a little bit deeper and actually doing some practice time together of like looking at a chart and kind of, putting on those IFS glasses and starting to see the parts and how to kind of get to, where we want to get to do some of the work.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I hope I'll always be talking and teaching about this in some capacity as it continues to evolve over time.
Yeah. How long have you been a therapist?
Been a therapist, it's about 10 years.
Oh, so are you ever in a session and you like don't know what to talk about, or like if the person's like kind of like really quiet, are you ever like I don't know what to ask them or I don't know what to talk about?
I used to feel that way. I don't anymore.
Really?
Uh,
What changed?
what changed is really internal family systems. If that's what's happening, like I'm always just tracking like what part of this person is present now. And if they're not talking a lot, there's some part is there that doesn't want to or maybe needs some support in some different way. Um, yeah, and so then I'll just check in with that, like what feels the most present right now. Well, I don't know. I don't know what to say. Okay, is that something you felt before? Yeah, it's something I feel a lot. You know, so and anything that actually happens in the session is a little trailhead into doing some deeper exploration.
Interesting. God, that's so cool. I think because it's like as a therapist, I feel like it's your job to talk for an hour, like a whole hour. I mean, it's like that being an astrologer, right? Like our job is to like spend an hour focusing on somebody, like
Yeah,
just plain and simple, you know?
yes.
And that is the container of healing in some ways. It's just the focus, you know?
Right. Yes. The being with. I feel like in therapy, I do way, way less talking than my client. You know, my client is there. And even if they're not talking a lot, I don't tend to try and fill the space a whole lot unless there's something we kind of need to process. But it is the like feeling felt by another person, right? Like bearing witness to what's going on with a person is such a that's a healing, you know, on its own, and you don't have to do a whole lot for that piece of it. But
Interesting.
well, I guess be present and attuned and all of that. But
Do you do straight up astrology readings?
I do, yes.
And is that different? Like, do you talk more in an astrology reading than a counseling session?
Oh yeah. Oh, a lot more, yes. If someone, especially, yeah, if someone has booked a chart reading, I'm doing a lot more talking, right? Because I'm explaining like, okay, you have this and this, and I'll ask them questions too because I'm still using the internal family systems lens. You know, and like say they have an Aries moon, I might ask like, what was your relationship like with conflict growing up, right? And that might elicit something, and then we'll kind of. But I'm doing much more talking there because I really am guiding that session. Whereas like with a client, you know, they might pop in and, you know, I'll just check in with like what feels important to explore today. Do we want to pick up where we left off last time? Is there something else that feels more salient today?
It's so interesting because an astrology reading is it's like a teaching session. Like people always think it's going to be like super magical, and it's like in some ways, what's more magical is having a therapy session where someone's listening to you and like you're just getting to like get out all of your stuff. But it's like there's something about astrology where it's supposed to be magical, but it's actually kind of like talking to a teacher for an hour. They're like, well,
Yeah.
Mars from the first house, and what that means is this and that. And so I find like
Right.
that dance of like trying to maintain like a magical flair while also being a highly technical astrologer. It's like it is more content creation than like the more therapeutic container, which is
Oh,
like a
for
list
sure.
container, you know?
It's quite a bit more work, actually. Like for me to do a chart reading is quite a bit more work than to have a therapy session with someone I've been working with weekly for a while because I know their whole story, kind of know what we're doing. I'm there to just kind of guide their process, but I'm not having to present, right? Like I'm not presenting to them, you know.
That's so interesting. Well, because they both look similar from the outside. Like they're both containers of you and one other person, like having it
Yeah.
pour together. But like there's such a different. God, that's so interesting to think about. Like, I mean, and I think what's cool about getting to know you a little bit is that I think a lot of times people think that counselors or astrologers are counselors. And
Mm,
I would say they're more like consultants than counselors because we're handling
100%.
data. So what do
Yes.
you think about that? Like counselor versus like how is being an astrologer different than being a counselor and how is it being similar?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think astrologers by trade are more in the consulting realm, right? Where it's like you said, you're presenting information, you're you know offering a wisdom or a skill set that your client doesn't have. The counseling piece comes in, I think, more around the remediation that you're talking about, and like, well, here's like so for example a lot of times I'll do like we'll do the initial IFS chart reading and we'll look at the chart and what it all means. it will bring up so much stuff that usually we'll end up booking another session to like, where do we want to start with this, right? Like, let's pick a starting point, and then the next session might be more therapy-ish, right? Where I'm having them really connect with whatever's come up. Um, I've done things where I'll do that in like a 6 week series. Like we do your chart and then we do like 5 sessions of working on the stuff that came up. But that's very different, right? Than doing like a 90 or 2 hour session where you're just kind of sharing all of the information. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. And then it's interesting, like bringing astrology into therapy, which, you know, I feel like more recently for me, that's been less of an issue. Like, I feel like in the beginning of becoming a therapist, I was like, well, these two things have to be entirely separate all of the time. But really, they don't, because I'm not using astrology as a clinical intervention. We're using it as a tool, the way we use lots of other personality tests and things like that. And then the work is still being done through the evidence based, either the EMDR or the IFS. So yeah, depending whether it's a consulting client or a counseling client for me, because I do separate them depending on the type of work the person wants to do. Energetically, I do feel it's quite different.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting? Like, why do we have to use astrology when we're doing other things? It's like, I think astrology explains concepts and problems that nothing else explains.
I
Like,
agree.
like the idea of a transit. Like, let's say you're working with somebody who's bipolar, right? And like, you might have to say, well, it sounds like you were in a Mars transit, which is a lot like a mania, or
Right.
it's like you had a wave of passion that, and like you can talk about it without using the astro terminology. You can be like, there was a wave of passion, but when you say, astrologers believe that there's the moving planets in sight, fill you up with energy or whatever, and that could cause a mania. Like there's something about like when you bring in the celestial clock and things like that, that it explains things that nothing else explains. And so I think once you're an astrologer, you kind of it informs everything you do because it's like the philosophy of it fixes problems that nothing else fixes.
Yeah, I also feel that it is so much more comprehensive than any other way of understanding or knowing things. Like I feel like in the psychology world, and I'm into these things too, but again, there's something popular called the Enneagram. Have you heard of
Oh
that?
yeah, oh yeah.
It's like what number type are you, and it kind of explains your personality, or like the Jungian, like Myers-Briggs, are you an INFP or an ISTJ? Like all of those are interesting, but to me, I'm like, well, if we just look at the chart, like we'll cover all of this and way, way, way more. So I
Well,
just feel like it's so rich.
totally. And what those things do is ask you questions and then group you into like nine, labels, right?
Yeah,
Same with like the Myers-Briggs. It's like, okay, now I get this four type label, whatever.
right.
But with astrology, it's a study of individuality. So we say, like, who are you and what are all these individual pieces of you? And then how are you cyclically expressing? It's like there's so much more in an astrology reading than ever could be, in one of these other things that is more like quantifying.
Absolutely. Right. To
But
me, everything else is still just talking about your chart, but
well, yeah, I
right.
mean, like Jung was an astrologer, wasn't he? Like, anyways, like
Yeah,
a lot of these guys. Well, but I think there is the overstim factor of astrology when people use it in this kind of overstimming way, where it's like you're like, well, anyway, you're Mars one, like it's like that, and something like the Enneagram is more palatable or accessible to somebody,
digestible in a way, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
or like you can be like, I'm a manifesting generator too, and like you can find like
Yeah.
commonalities. Whereas with astrology, it in some ways it can be so complex that as to overwhelm some people, perhaps, kind of
There's
thing.
a lot of, I think, language to astrology. I think that's the biggest barrier with it. It really is like learning another language, right? And then once you speak it, it's great. You get it and you can expand on it, and there's endless stuff to learn. But I think really it's like learning the language, even, and I include in that like how things move and angles and all this. It's complex, I guess. But to me, I'm like, it's complex enough though to be more complete.
Isn't it weird when you're talking to another astrologer? Like you and I are both astrologers. Like nothing you say overstims or overwhelms me, and everything makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's like it's crazy when you both know it because it doesn't seem complex. It seems like
We
every.
speak this language. So yeah.
So I have to ask you, with your planets in the 11th house, are you involved in any astrological groups?
I no, I would like to be. And maybe that's where my yearning to like do these workshops and like connect therapists who are also into astrology, like that to me has always been so like that's how I recharge. I'm going to Omega Institute in 2 weeks for the Stephen Forrest is doing like a relationship astrology week. But I'm
Wow.
like, oh, like that's like astrology summer camp. Like I can't wait. Norwalk was amazing.
Oh my
Um,
God.
so yeah, like finding those places to speak that shared language is really important to me. So I hope I'll find more ways to do that.
Interesting, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I can totally see with that Cancer there, or like you like run your local chapter, or like you know what I mean? Like just having
Yeah, yeah.
over there, you could totally run your
That
local
would be
group. Well, we only have 5 minutes left. This has been a great conversation, very easy. I sometimes do have a hard time knowing what to talk about. Like I know you don't, but I sometimes I do. But I did not today. So that was awesome. But I want to know what else would you like people to know? And how can we find you? Those are the two last questions I have.
mm. Yeah. I mean, I guess when it comes to integrating these two things, I guess I want people to know that astrology really can be more than just kind of memorizing your placements and your personality traits. And it really can be an entry point into doing some deeper work that goes on through your lifetime. Like it's kind of like a companion for learning and growing. I don't think that's always so easily realized. But you can find me online, No Bad Charts on Instagram, No Bad Charts on the internet. Yeah, those are the easiest ways to get a hold of me.
Sorry, you broke up right there. Say so no charts dot no bad charts on Instagram and where else? NoBadCharts.com.
NoBadCharts.com.
So if people wanted to actually work with you as a counselor, they get to you through that?
They could get to me through that. My counseling practice is imaginehealingtrauma.com.
Okay, imaginehealingtrauma.com. Okay.
Long.
Will you email me all the contacts and then when I make the video, I'll put everything there because I think people do actually go see the practitioners that we interview. Like I've heard several stories of people going to people. So I think,
Awesome.
and I have a few people I do want to share this with because what you do is so powerful. Our remediation crew would just eat you alive. They'd be like, "Oh my God."
I
Like,
love that.
yeah. Um, okay, well, so I think I think we covered everything that was in your email. Is there anything else that we should talk about?
No, I really enjoyed this. I had fun chatting with you.
Yeah, totally. Well, it is cool because now I feel like I know you a little bit. Like, so when I see you at
Yeah,
network next
hey,
year or whatever, and we're gonna be on the Ricky show in September.
September, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like now I feel like I know you, and you're on the show, I can be like, all right, Sarah's here. You know what I mean? I know that
Right. Yeah.
Sarah just a little bit too. So,
No,
um,
yeah, I feel the same way. It was really nice to like connect with you a bit and get to know more. So,
well, thank you so much, Sarah. I will talk to you very soon.
all right, sounds
All right,
great.
take care. Bye.
Bye.